But now it's time to get into the top 5, bottom 5 from this game. Did it last week. Had a bunch of fun with it. I'm going to do it again this week. Bit more creative than just players. Last week we started with the 5th on the bottom. So this week we'll start with the 5th on the top. At number 5 on the top 5, we have the involvement and buy-in from everybody. When Cormani got that pick 6, you talked about it earlier. Billy gave permission for everybody to go celebrate with him. Cormani jumped into the crowd, onto the gate, whatever. Not really into the crowd, you know what I mean, though. But it was so electric and fun to see all that. It really puts a smile on your face to see a guy who maybe had some weird stuff happen in Colorado. Not going to get into that because I don't know the full story there. But someone who could be on his last legs of making it to the NFL and as a football player. So it's really good to see him get that. Said he worked really hard for it. You just see the buy-in from the team. I mean, most teams in our position are giving up, and a team like Kentucky would easily beat them. Maybe not easily, but they beat them to the point where it's like you just tell this team is wore out, not looking good. But that's just not this team. Billy is such a great connection with these players. It's something we really haven't seen in a while at UF. He really cares about him. It's nice to see him start getting active about it. I mean, I hope it means he really cares about this job. I mean, I assume he does. I mean, who wouldn't want to be a coach at the University of Florida? I would. Voice crack, but I would. So it's nice to see the involvement from everybody and the excitement from everybody. And maybe the team can turn it around. So the bottom 5 was pretty tough to do. Got a bit nitpicky here because it was such a great game from offense and defense. And some of the special teams. But on the bottom 5, I'd go with maybe the play calling. I mean, it's not necessarily the play calling was bad. I think there was some maybe adjustments they could have made on early in the game, as I was saying. We were running to the short side where they had a bunch of defenders. Both our field goals probably were results of that exactly. Could have been the difference between 6 and 14 points there. But maybe that's a DJ mistake right there. Maybe it's coaching telling them to run that way. Maybe it's just Kentucky being that third best defense going into that game. Again, these are very nitpicky, so you don't really need to come defending them that much. Number 4, not something I expected to be on the top 5. I'm on the bottom 5 last week. The entire offensive line not making many mistakes, really. Most of the time that our runs didn't work, it was because, again, of numbers. Very rarely did we see us missing blocking assignments, like maybe 1 or 2 times. DJ didn't face too much pressure. That was more just his freshman goo, maybe making it a bit weirder. But I really liked Jake Slaughter. He's been a really good pass blocker this year. His run blocking was elite in this game. Austin Barber's run blocking was really good in this game too. Harris gave up a play, but he played overall pretty good. Damian George, one of our touchdowns, you see him go out and get a pancake on a player at the 2-yard line, 5 yards away from the line of scrimmage. It's nice seeing him being able to get outside there with his frame and making those pancakes when speed's always been like his biggest question. So the O-line, got to tip that. Oh, Brandon Crenshaw Davis. How could I forget the transfer from San Diego State? Our first touchdown was a really impressive play by Jaden Ball and Brandon Crenshaw. He's carrying a defender, and you have Crenshaw pushing him up there. They get into the end zone. They fall down because the tackler finally brings him down in the end zone. And Crenshaw hits a celebration doing like a gator walk. If you haven't seen it, you need to go back and look for it. If you have ESPN Plus, you can go onto ESPN app and get the game on that first touchdown. It was a pretty funny celebration coming from an offensive lineman. And I just love to see it. And we got with George here, maybe having 2 offensive linemen is finally starting to work. This offensive line probably might be our best in the Napier era. Bottom 5, number 4. Again, we're getting nitpicky here. I was looking for anything. Kick returns is what I came across. Berrien Brown had that elite play. So both sides of the kick return I'll talk about here. Berrien Brown had that elite kick return. He's had a kick return earlier in the year, I think. I know he had 1 or 2 last year. We all know he's an elite kick return artist. Damian George is an awesome last name. Okay, George, yeah. But, I mean, we should have tackled him, at least get him out of bounds. But I give it to Brown. But on our end, returning, I don't know, Jaden Ball had a couple returns. Nothing really special happened. He tripped, I think, on one of them. Just maybe we should just call fair catches. Also, with Ball being our starting running back, I'm not sure how much I liked him returning kicks right there. You had Badger also returning kicks. He returned the first one as well. It was all right. Nothing special. Again, being nitpicky here. But overall, it's kind of meh in a game where we had a lot of great. Number 3 in the top 5. Will Harris deserves a standing ovation for this DB room. I mean, goodness gracious, was the DB room, the DB play really good besides one play, the flea flicker. I mean, Jason Marshall locking up his man until he gets hurt. Jordan Castell didn't play horrible. He deserves applause for that. He did not play horrible. Man, my nose is itchy. But Cormani McLean comes in late in the game. Pick 6, pass deflection. We were really letting Kentucky make the mistakes themselves. Devin Moore had the pick. Bridges had an amazing game. One of the best tackles in open space that we've seen from a Florida defensive back in a long time on a 4th down near the end of the game. It just, as George is saying right here, makes me smile. Gives that thumbs up. It's nice seeing the DBs play really well. Asa Turner, I thought he was probably going to be out for the year looking off the injury he got against Miami. He might be back, which adds a lot of physicality to this defensive back room. Maybe we don't have that elite hitman right now, but Turner, if he can come back at that Georgia game especially, that would be really big for us. Because now instead of just letting them beat themselves, Turner can make those big plays to stop it from happening. Bottom 3, I'm not as big as a hater on this as most people are. But with how I'm nitpicking here, I will take into account how everybody else felt. The end of the half play calling. We just saw Kentucky get that kick return for a touchdown. We just saw that Kentucky get the kick return for a touchdown. They get ball to start second half, but Lagway's been elite. Let him throw it. Give him a chance. A minute and a half is a ton of time, especially to stop the clock stopping on first downs. Instead, we just run the clock out. Then Kentucky scores, makes a one-score game out of the third quarter. Personally, again, maybe someone in the comments wants to talk about it and maybe say why they think it was a worse idea. But the way I see it, your QB did throw an interception a little bit ago. This is the end of half. Kentucky got a little bit of momentum off that kick return. So that's why I kind of okay with just running it out. Maybe I would have liked to see us take a shot at least. But to me, it's not really the end of the world. Oh, man. These are just nitpicky, man. It was a really good game. Probably Napier's best game as a Gator. Yeah. Most complete game. Ironically, his two best games, this one and 2022 South Carolina, we gave up special teams touchdowns. Rob here explaining. Billy has been scared to go for it at the end of half ever since AR in his first year. Maybe it's a trend that goes back to Louisiana. Arizona State, maybe even. Clemson, maybe even. But number 2 on the top 5, a lot of fans want... Actually, I'm not going to get into that. Number 2 on the top 5, the physicality. Billy's Napier's teams have been built on this physicality at Louisiana. That's why they were winning the Sun Belt and upsetting teams like top 10 Iowa State during the COVID season. But we haven't seen it at Florida much. And the games we win are the ones where we're the more physical teams. Got a Miami fan here in the chat saying us Kane fans love that Lagway is doing well. That means y'all are keeping G5 Billy longer. LMAO, keep him forever. Hey, lose Cam Moore next year, Catman. Barely winning games. Miami, okay, I don't want to say that. 3 straight games where I'm not saying officials made the wrong call, but there have been some really close calls that all go Miami's way. Bound to slip up somewhere. And what happens when you lose Cam Moore? Let's get back into the top 5 game. What am I doing? The physicality, the trenches, offensive line I already talked about were really good. The defensive line, the interior was shutting down Kentucky the entire time. Never even had a chance. Number 2 on the bottom 5. This isn't even something we really control. Injuries. Jason Marshall probably haven't done that yet, but probably one of our best defensive players. Is one of our best defensive players, especially how he's been this year. Gets hurt. They had to pop it back in place. Probably dislocated. I don't know how long he's going to be out. I project that he'd be out for the Georgia game, but I don't know for sure. Hope we can get him back. We didn't really lose anybody else this game. It's just that's probably our biggest loss outside of number 1 from this week. George here. I would love to make it to the playoffs and play Miami again. I'm all for it, George. Give us the in-state rematch. I'm 100% for it. Miami's have a tough game with Clemson. ACC, man. Get into that later. Number 1 on the top 5. So when I was making this top 5, I was trying to decide if I want to do individually, together, or what. But I decided to do them together so I could fit some other things onto that top 5. I'm pretty sure everybody can guess at least part of it. It was the true freshmen. Both starting in the backfield, DJ Lagway and Jaden Ball. Lagway already has the record twice. Twice he has the record for most 40-yard passes in a game. 40-yard passes. 5 of them against Kentucky, a top 3 defense. How many times do I need to repeat this? It's just magical how good this guy is. The other one was Kyle Trask and Tim Tebow. And Tebow's was against Western Kentucky. That just shows how good DJ Lagway is. We got a little Rob saying he dislocated his shoulder. It was like sore for 6 days. Full range of motion after about a week and a half. So, yeah, Marshall's not going to be back for that. If it's a dislocated shoulder, Marshall will not be back for that Georgia game. Maybe we'll get him back by the time we start playing LSU. That's especially when we'll need that secondary. But let's get back to the true freshman. Jaden Ball, 5 touchdowns, 100 yards. Made some crucial plays. Most touchdowns in a game by a true freshman. He tied it with Trey Burton, who did it in 2010 against Kentucky. Trey Burton featured touchdown passer in the Super Bowl for the Eagles. Philly special. But Jaden Ball just showed that he's going to be a really good back, and especially behind Montrell for the rest of the season. It's going to be a dynamic duo. And I think we definitely have it figured out what we need to do. Let's just hope Billy sticks with it. And then DJ Lagway, over 300 total yards. Ball took it all his touchdowns. So, I mean, didn't get any of the touchdowns, but 5 passes of 40-plus yards, man. It's just insane. His deep ball accuracy, I'm telling you, if you put DJ Lagway on Tennessee, Tennessee is undefeated. I mean, there's so many teams that if you put Lagway on, would be in the top 10 right now. Might be one of the best true freshman QBs we've seen since Trevor Lawrence won the national championship. You see Dylan Raiola, really good, exponentially high future. But we saw him struggle against Indiana, throwing, 2 picks? They lost 56-7. Kurt Signetti. But saw him struggle against Indiana, saw him struggle against Illinois. Lagway, we haven't really seen struggle when he's been a full-time starter. Like, he does need to get, into his groove a little bit. Like, as you saw, we didn't score a touchdown for our first, 4 drives. But then we got into our groove, and it was touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. Deep ball after deep ball after deep ball. He's just a different level, man. And this kid's going to get better. Once he develops that short game, man, he's just going to get better and better. Oh, man. Okay. Bottom 5. This was probably the easiest of the bottom 5 lists that I could have done. Not necessarily this game. Why did it take us so long to figure out this team? Billy's in his 3rd season. It took 4 weeks, 4 games to figure out what this team is. Even not with Lagway and Mertz. I think Mertz is still a good player. We still beat Kentucky with Mertz, in my opinion. Don't beat him like this, but we still beat him with Mertz. But he talked about it after the Mississippi State game, and he said he knows Pyburn needs more playing time. Why didn't you realize that earlier in the year? Actually, I might know why on that one, but still. Bridges ended up playing a really good game. The offensive line is just so much improved. The defensive line, what happened over that bye week that we didn't know before the season that makes this team look so much better? We should have beat Tennessee, who just knocked off a Bama. Sometimes this coach just doesn't make much sense. Man,